Okay. Are we all back? I think so. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My earbuds are still like magic or something. Okay, this regular business meeting for February 9th, 2021 of the Edmonds School District Board of Directors is called to order. Dr. Balderas, would you please administer the land acknowledgement?
Yes, love to, President Kogor. Thank you, and appreciate the board being on tonight. We acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Snohomish people, and their successors, the Tulalip tribes, who since time immemorial have taken care of, hunted, fished, and gathered on these lands. We respect their sovereignty and their right of self-determination, and we honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. By acknowledging these homelands, we commit to working with tribal nations to further the education aims they have identified in our classrooms and schools. Thank you, board.
Thank you. Next, we have our flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. It's hard to sync that. Okay, next we have the approval of the agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for tonight. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? And the motion passes. The agenda is approved. Next, we have approval of the school board minutes for January 19th study session, January 26th study session, and January 26th business meeting. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the board minutes for the January 19th, 26th study session and business meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the school board minutes for January 19th, 26th study sessions and January 26th business meeting. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the school board minutes for January 19th, 2021 study session, January 26th, 2021 study session, and January 26th, 2021 business meeting, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? And the motion passes. Next, we have public comments. The public comment item on the agenda is an opportunity for citizens to address the school board. Items brought forward during this portion of the agenda will not be acted upon by the board at this time. Questions may also be referred to the superintendent or staff for examination and later response. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the board will accept written comments only until further notice, and we will allow 30 minutes to read those comments. We'll read as many as we can in 30 minutes. And let me look. I looked at the comments earlier. I don't know if they've grown a lot since I looked just an hour or so ago. We might be able to get through most of them. So why don't I go ahead and start? And yeah, let's see if we can't get through them. as they are. And I'm going to skip a little bit. I'll read the first few, but I want to make sure that I read Mr. Keeler's comments that are at the end because he submitted them last week and we didn't get to them. So our first comment is from Aaron Holder on the topic of opening schools. 2 weeks ago, I reached out to the school board and asked you to take 5 steps as a start towards trust and transparency. Share with families the cases that are already happening in our schools. Share with families that their students will likely get new teachers and classmates. Share the data that shows the hybrid model is better than remote learning. Make a pledge that if a teacher or student gets sick because of in-person learning, the district will support them both financially and emotionally. And make a pledge to be in open schools. Show you trust the procedures you have put in place with your own body and health. I appreciate that the district has been much clearer about the effects of opening on learning communities and has taken steps to share information about cases that are happening in our schools. I ask you again to take the final 3 steps or explain why they are unreasonable. In the district's COVID-19 handbook, it lists 5 guiding principles, including high quality teaching and learning for all students, consideration of the needs of our most vulnerable students, and consideration of the impacts on families. Are we meeting these principles? Can we meet them if we are not making choices informed by data and best practices? Shuffling classes and separating communities will be a restart to the school year. Opening schools as proposed means we believe the disruption of students that stay in remote learning and are placed in a new class or with a new teacher is worth it, and that kindergartners who are separated from their very first class and their very first teacher are an acceptable trade-off, all with no guarantee that the portion of students who opt in will be better off during their at most 40 days in school, much less all students, much less our most vulnerable students that stay remote and end up in a new class with a new teacher. Is opening schools important, even if it means causing harm to students, or is finding innovative ways to support students important, even if it means not opening schools? The next comment is from Nicole Harold. The topic is seeking clarification, supporting students in remote learning. I am seeking clarification on the following points after exchanging multiple emails with Director Kilgore and Dr. Balderas. If the district's first priority is the well-being of our students, then why aren't we pooling resources to support the 35% of our students in poverty during remote learning instead of using all of our resources to change everyone's learning circumstances? If the goal is to help those students that are falling through the cracks, then shouldn't we be using resources to support those students specifically during remote learning instead of changing every student's learning situation? 2, after students are ripped away from their current classmates, teachers, what will be done at the district level to promote community in the new remote and hybrid settings? The recent district communication was finally clear that changing teachers and classes was a strong possibility for any student and teacher in our community. So what is being done proactively to support those that will be affected? Lastly, thank you for acknowledging that data collection and analysis in this district is an opportunity for growth in your recent emails. In the future, how will the school board, Dr. Balderas, and all persons in charge of reviewing data to make district-wide decisions be held accountable for equitably analyzing data? Will measures be taken by the student learning department, outside vendors, and internal survey collectors to present data to decision makers in a more comprehensive manner? Or will it be on the decision makers as individuals to ask clarifying questions to determine the validity of the data? Additionally, when speaking of data at school board meetings to the general public, will you be sharing why you find the data relevant, valid, or otherwise valuable? Or will those points be available in the agenda prepared ahead of time? I look forward to responses. Thank you for your time. Our next comment is from Christy Peel on in-person learning. My name is Christy Peel. I teach first grade at Cedar Way Elementary. Please delay bringing more people to buildings and focus on improving remote learning instead. It's not safe for more kids and staff to return to buildings. What scientists know about the coronavirus is evolving and the more virulent variant is present in our community. There is not universal agreement that it is safe for kids and staff to be in person. Instead, officials are saying having kids in person is more important than the health risks to staff, student, and families. Remote learning may not work for everyone, but neither does in-person. My first grade class has similar reading levels and growth rates as past years. We are doing the best we can. Even though limited people are on site, there are regular reports of coronavirus. Last week, 2 COVID-19 cases were reported at our schools. People are quarantining and 1 in-person program is closed for 2 weeks. There were 30 individuals with COVID-19 at buildings reported since early November. Interruptions to in-person schooling will happen when staff or students get coronavirus. Whose lives are you willing to risk? Which educators are you willing to sacrifice? Which kids and families? Are you willing to spend a day in a room where every time someone needs to blow their nose, drink, or eat, they will remove their mask? Are you willing to do that without being vaccinated? Don't force us back now. Instead, add support for kids who are struggling. This comes from Richard B. On the topic of a kindergarten hub at Woodway campus. Speaking as a resident living closest to Westgate School and the Sherwood service area, including the community at present means having the principals of Sherwood and Westgate send letters to school families. Dr. Valderas speaks about community engagement as a top priority. Alas, community does not include residents that live near the school since they have no information about the possible moving to former Woodway campus. This seems important since the school board directed staff to get input from the community. Input is likely to be abundant from the e-learning families who would rather not leave a central location. It's likely to be abundant from current 5th grade families who would rather finish a 6th grade year at the neighborhood school. One group is not at the table: future kindergarten students and residents of future kindergartners. This is not likely a coincidence. The very structure of this arrangement telegraphed to anyone considering participating that they are wasting their time. The kindergarten hub is a done deal. So I've wasted my time with this letter. This helpless feeling will not easily pass. I want my schools to succeed. I can't believe the tax-paying citizens in the houses around the schools are being so neglected in the conversation. Input from the community was not actually done beyond the schoolhouse. The school board should ask specific questions about who the communication targeted. There are no good options ahead except starting over with actual outreach to the whole neighborhood. Or maybe it is a done deal. The current communication process leaves my only input on a levy ballot. I've never thought of not voting for schools until now. The next comment comes from Kim Backa, and this is on the topic of reopening schools. As remote learning stretches on indefinitely and we begin to see the profound effects of prolonged isolation on our teens, at some point we have to acknowledge the fact that we have more than one health risk threatening our community. According to the CDC, 25.5% of 18 to 24-year-olds have seriously considered suicide within the past 30 days. 24.7% have started or increased substance use to cope with pandemic-related stress or emotions. Equivalent figures for kids under 18 aren't available, but between April and October of 2020, the percentage of mental health-related emergency room visits increased by 24% for those between the ages of 5 to 11, and 31% for those between the ages of 12 to 17. We have seen the tragic reality of these statistics play out in our own community. The American Academy of Pediatrics continues to assert the importance of in-person learning for students' overall health and well-being. I have personally spoken to 2 pediatricians who both strongly advised that kids need the option to be in school, at least in a hybrid cohort model. The World Health Organization and UNESCO warn that the adverse effects of school closures on children's safety, well-being, and learning are well documented, and the longer marginalized children are out of school, the less likely they are to return. Schools around the country have been open since the fall. Private schools in our area have been open for months. Elsewhere in the world, schools have remained open, yet we remain closed. My kids know several of their peers who have died in the past few months of despair. Many of our kids are grappling with the loss of more dead peers than we are. Are we really willing to continue to sacrifice the well-being of children out of fear for ourselves? Trying to reopen after 18 student suicides in the past 9 months, the Las Vegas, Nevada superintendent said, when we started to see the uptick in children taking their lives, we knew it wasn't just the COVID numbers we needed to look at anymore. They've got to start seeing some movement, some hope. The youngest was 9 years old. One boy left a note saying that he had nothing to look forward to. Please give our students some hope now, and I will pass the baton on to the next person who wants to take up the reading.
I'll go next, Deborah. The next one is from Maria Scott on the topic of online learning. And she says, while there are definite challenges to online teaching, I will admit there are some great things coming out of it too. Out of my 19 students, I have 18 that regularly attend Zoom class. I have 2 IEP students, 2 students who only speak Spanish, 7 EL students, and 2 McKinney-Vento students. My classroom is diverse, and it is a challenge to meet the needs of every student every day in a remote setting. But there's a lot I am able to do remote that I cannot do at this time in person. Teaching phonics to my students has never been easier. I can get close to the camera and really let students see my mouth and the shapes I'm making for each letter. Students that are better able to mimic the shape and create the sounds on their own. I could not do this in a classroom with a mask on. How can I ask them if they can feel the air move when they say P if they are wearing a mask? We use our afternoon session to do the state-supported plan. Do, reflect. The state-supported plan, do, reflect. Students make a plan of what they are going to do during this time, tell it to a small group in a breakout room, and then they do it. While it's not the same unstructured play that happens in a classroom, you'd be amazed at the friendships and bonds students are building. They are playing games together, reading to each other, giving drawing and Lego building challenges. They are building relationships and practicing skills skills that we use in the classroom. In a classroom, students must keep a 6-foot distance, thus destroying their ability to play together. While not ideal, online learning is working and it's effective. All of my students have shown an increase in their reading skills and almost all know their letter names and sounds. My students are showing up. They are learning. I understand this is not the case for every classroom in our district. I know my students would benefit from in-person instruction if it could look like it normally does. However, keeping energetic students apart, wearing masks, and not being vaccinated in a poorly ventilated classroom will turn teaching from something that is effective and work. Maria Scott, it's on the topic of hybrid learning. She says, during the last school board meeting, can everybody hear me? Did my internet connection just go out?
So this is
Okay, is it
the
okay?
second comment for the same individual. I wonder if
It
we
is.
could continue with the
Maria
rest of the
Scott?
comments to make sure that everybody has
Oh,
a
good.
chance.
Yes, thank you. I did not realize that. The next one is Peter Evans on the hybrid model. As a parent of a kindergarten student, I would like to know if the district is looking at all possible hybrid models or sticking with the one announced in July 2020. Seeing as we know more about how the virus is transmitted and how students and teachers are coping with distance education, it seems prudent to look at all the available options rather than sticking with the decision we made when we knew less. I firmly believe half days would serve students and teachers better. The previously selected AABB model means that students would go 3 days without interaction with their teacher or classmates and instead only have asynchronous activities. This means 3 days with no live learning, no social interaction, and no check-ins with the teacher. I also can't imagine the workload on the teachers to be responsible for 3 full days of asynchronous lessons on top of teaching the students they see live 4 days a week. A half-day schedule would allow students to have interaction with their teachers and peers 4 days a week. This could also lessen the burden of on teachers, as the students could use the asynchronous part of the half-day to read, work, on online learning programs and have music/PE/library classes. We now know that people are not contracting the virus from touching surfaces. So while cleaning is still important, it is not needed for everything in the school to be disinfected between groups. Cleaning could be targeted. Also, half days would allow for food service to be sent from home with kids, so no eating, which requires masks off and is not as safe, is required. Send the AM kids home with lunch as well as breakfast for the next day, and send the PM kids home with the next day's breakfast and lunch. I know negotiations are ongoing with the staff about groups, but please let the public know if the model is up for reconsideration. This was not something that the labor groups bargained previously, so it does not threaten the negotiations. Thank you. The next one is Emily Incroci. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. The topic is kids back to school. I am deeply concerned and disappointed with the options we are faced with of sending kids back into the classrooms or remaining fully remote. How can there not be an option to keep these little ones with the only constant thing they've had that they've had this strange school year, their teacher? Especially for these young students, this is an essential part of doing what is in their best interest. The idea of going into the classroom 2 days a week with a stranger, new faces, not being able to really touch anything in the middle of the school year is hard to wrap my head around. But the thought of them having a new face, even for remote learning, which they've worked so hard to make the best of, is very upsetting. I believe kids should be getting back to school, as we have seen some local schools doing successfully since March. There has to be a better way. The next one is Mike Incroci, which is on the kindergarten hybrid. Mental health of our students needs to be at the forefront of any decision. The proposed hybrid model is going in the wrong direction. The amazing teachers have been tasked with a near impossible job and have done so tremendously. However, now that we're working to get back in the classroom, we're discussing new teachers, staying at desk all day, no touching anything, no touching any playground equipment, no singing. I fail to see the benefit that the mental health of our, for the mental health of our children. Again, against all odds, the teachers have done an exceptional job to foster a warm and safe environment in which the children can feel free to be vulnerable and learn. Stripping them of all these familiarities is quite, I implore you, reconsider the restrictions. Consider the data the private schools have provided by safely remaining open. The proposed hybrid model is quite worse than what the teachers and district have worked to curate. Consistency is key. If the proposed hybrid model or the remote model will potentially different teachers and classmates is the only option, then we need to squash it and stay focused on how to finish the year remotely with the same teachers and classmates. that the children have come to know and trust. We can do better. We must do better. And I'll do one more, I guess. I haven't kept track of the number. Kathy Daly on remote versus hybrid. I am writing with my reflections and concerns with switching from remote to hybrid learning. I'm a first grade teacher in the district. Let me start by saying that I strongly believe teachers should be vaccinated before being asked to return to the classroom. That aside, I feel compelled to share my concerns with switching to hybrid learning at this time. Young readers cannot learn to read when the teacher's mouth is covered and when all students must be taught in one big group. Yes, 10 is a big group for learning to read. Young learners will not build independence by being asked to work alone 3 consecutive days at home without their teacher. We build independence by gradually releasing them for short times, not by abandoning them for 3/5 of their learning time. Families are not aware that school as we know it will not be the type of school their child attends. No shared supplies, not shared reading, no shared problem solving, no teacher to stand beside them or sit with them to guide them. Instead, they will be sitting for hours alone at their tables. Students may be taken from their current teacher and placed with another. We were asked to spend weeks building relationships and teaching social emotional lessons. This will be a very difficult situation for young learners and their families. There will be many tears. If school started on February 22nd, just a guess, we would see our students in person 35 days. That's it. All of this for 35 days with them. My heart breaks thinking of my students in this situation. This can't be the best we can do. Please think carefully about what is truly best for our young learners. And I will pass it on to the next person.
Hi, this is Karen. I'm happy to go next. I believe we're on number 13, Stephanie Stoser. The topic is returning to school. The thought of going through more turmoil right now is exhausting, frightening, and quite frankly, makes me want to take my family and run for the hills. I understand there's no way to guarantee teacher placement with the upcoming changes, which is why I wonder why bringing young kids back at this point is even under consideration. By the time they adjust to a new teacher and classmates, whether in the hybrid model or remaining remote, it will be June and the school will be over. It's too late in the year to ask this much of students, teachers, and parents. Next is Jennifer Murphy, the topic, in-person kindergarten. I am a concerned mom of a kindergartner. I'm concerned that when some kids go back in a hybrid model, then everyone's whole routine is upended. My child, as do many others, thrive on routines. He loves his teacher and his classmates. We are keeping him remote this year for safety and consistency. Sorry. Sec. I lost my visual.
It's line 14.
Yeah, I got it. There we go. Thank you. Then I've got something opened on the side that I can't make go away. I might not be able to continue this one because I can't see half of the question. I'm sorry.
I'll pick it up for you, Karen.
Thank you. Yeah, my computer's trying to update on top of this question. Sorry.
No, I get it. I fear if his teacher and classmates get switched up halfway through the year, it will be disruptive to his learning and his trust in school. They have developed a relationship with their teacher and peers that is crucial to their sense of comfort, safety, and I often overhear the class telling each other and their teacher that they love each other. To disrupt that environment would be detrimental to their learning. I am also a nurse that works at a local hospital and have firsthand experience with the effects of COVID. I firmly believe that placing teachers back in person without being vaccinated is unsafe. Teachers are precious and should be protected. It's not a matter of if teachers get sick, but more of when they get sick. Is there a plan in place for when half of the staff is homesick or hospitalized or worse? COVID is airborne, and no matter how much you scrub a surface between contacts, there will still be exposure. Please reconsider bringing students back hybrid and please reconsider bringing students back hybrid and disrupting their routines and putting both kids and adults in unnecessary harm. Thank you for your time. Are you back, Karen?
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy.
Sure. You're welcome.
Next, we have Jennifer Taylor, and the agenda topic is remote and hybrid learning. Jennifer says, "Dear members of the Edmonds School Board, it is hard to believe that 11 months have passed since our emergency closure due to COVID-19 began. I know the decision to return to in-person learning is pressed on you each day. It is pressing on teachers, families, and students too. Please ask the following questions of the superintendent and his staff to help you make the best decisions for all in regards to the ESD reentry plan. 1, given that remote learning is not working for all students, how does hybrid learning solve this problem? 2, has it been clearly described to parents that the hybrid model Edmonds approved previously means students will have asynchronous learning with no check-ins or instruction on Zoom with a teacher for 3 days in a row? 3, when presenting data, please be clear on 1, date range of data, 2, open and close dates of data, 3, location of data and how it is specific or related to Edmonds School District students. As an elementary teacher in the district, I know that the Wednesdays asynchronous days have a drop in participation and engagement. I cringe at the thought of losing more students to the hybrid model of 3 asynchronous days attached to the weekend. All this with a real possibility of having a new teacher and classmates. This sounds defeating, especially compared to the 4 Zoom days I use now to actively teach the standards, provide feedback to students on their work, create opportunities to share their ideas with peers, and respond to the pulse of the classroom. At the January 26th board meeting, I was confused by the data presented in regards to the independent reading levels and social emotional reflections on Panorama, knowing that these assessment windows were still open. Clear data helps us see the needs. I encourage you to ask for clarity when information is provided. These decisions are difficult. After all, we are in a worldwide pandemic. Please ask tough questions and keep asking until you are satisfied you have clear information." Next is Christy Riggin, reentry update. I noticed that the reentry update does not include the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases or close contacts that have occurred to our district buildings. Does the school board have access to this information? Do they receive the same notifications that staff do? Do families receive the same notification that staff do? Is everyone aware that close contacts and their entire households have to quarantine for 2 weeks? This information is vital to families as they make upcoming decisions. And next is Jennifer Herman and plans for reopening schools. I'm the mother of a 5th grade student at Montlake Terrace Elementary. This year has been incredibly challenging for my family, as it has been for many families, but has not been without its opportunities for growth, learning, and connection. My daughter's teacher has worked to ensure a safe, nurturing, and inspiring learning environment. I agree that in-person learning is the best model for majority of students, and that when solely in-person learning is compared to solely online learning, the in-person model comes out on top. This, however, is not a fair representation of what is proposed. There is no evidence that a hybrid model where students likely change their teachers and peers more than halfway through the school year is beneficial to anyone. What is currently proposed is a model where students will be in person 2 days a week in classrooms where they are spaced out and unable to work in small groups, and 3 days a week of asynchronous learning. In my family, both parents work outside the home. This leaves my 5th grader independently working on Wednesdays without peer or teacher interaction. 1 day a week of asynchronous learning is difficult. 3 days would be untenable. We could opt to continue with remote learning, but again, it is likely that my daughter would have to change her teacher, and I am not confident that the backslide from this change could be overcome by her or by most students, either academically or emotionally. The current proposed model creates chaos for a majority of the students and teachers in a district at the time when many students are finally settling into an online learning environment. That being said, I realize that the current system is not working for all students, particularly those that were already marginalized pre-pandemic. It is my firm belief that students that are not able to manage in the current environment should be offered daily in-person learning and support, no matter their grade level. And that by allowing the majority of students to finish out the year remotely, space and resources could then be shifted to the students most in need. I believe you can do better, indeed must do better, until we can proceed to full reentry. And would someone like to go next?
Yeah, I'll continue on. The next one is from Amanda Lefhold, and she says, I urge the board to reconsider the hybrid model for in-person learning. Families have only just hit our stride with remote learning, and we are seeing our kindergartner make progress with a current teacher. While we are eager and supportive of returning to in-person learning, we are distressed with the two options at hand for phase 2. We urge the board to find an option with some element of continuity for our children, be it teacher, format, or classmates. The remote option, we will have a new teacher and classmates. The in-person option require a brand new rhythm and new relationship bonds to be formed. It would additionally be helpful to have an updated timeline. Is the quarterly updates still valid? What criteria needs to be met to move to phase 3 and 4? And what does the fall look like? We are so close to finishing off this unique school year. We need to preserve and ensure any change will bring added benefits, not a step backwards. Thank you. And next is from Jeremy Franklin. The district has not made the compelling case for in-person learning in a hybrid model during the pandemic. The district has also targeted the wrong population for the next wave of in-person services. So far, the district moves have shown that values guiding the decisions have been about taking care of the most important needs of students or making sure that students most in need are helped first. Moving young kids into a hybrid model is a deviation from those values because it fails to ask who is most at need and most at risk from not being in person now. The district has not made a compelling case nor given substantial reason for the move. How does the added benefit to my first graders learning from in-person versus remote learning outweigh the keeping my child safe from the pandemic? How does it outweigh the risk of bringing the virus home, of the potential fatal consequences to either child in the case of our family? A slight improvement in my child's quality of learning is no way can equal the risk of long-term effects of the virus or potential death. There's a strangeness to the push for reopening schools when our best science is saying that we are in a precarious position right now with variants that are more contagious and a slow roll out of vaccines that do not even prove very effective against the variants. According to science, we need to be more diligent in protecting ourselves until enough people are inoculated, and likely inoculated with boosted versions of the vaccine. I would like to know where the urgency is coming from, as it appears to be political rather than practical. I do not believe that my child will benefit significantly from 2 days at school in person. The hybrid model is mixed, and the data to support the hybrid model, and the data cannot support the hybrid model because the hybrid model has not been researched or proven to improve learning. It seems to me that all or nothing is a smart way to go, either in person or not. And then continuing from Jeremy
Director
Franklin.
Noble,
Yes.
Director Noble, in the interest of time, can we skip to the next person? And all the comments will be attached to the minutes for public view.
Okay, that was the second one from the same parent. So there's two more quick ones. I'll just do them. Last one is from Cassie Brickle. And I have noticed that a pattern I've noticed a pattern in how long it takes public comments to be linked to the school board meeting minutes. It takes 2 or more weeks, for example. The complete list of public comments from the meeting of 126 have not been linked to the meeting notes, despite the notes being available. The public comments for the meeting before that also took 2 weeks to link. Since we cannot hear all the public comments right now, I would hope that making sure the community has access to everything would be a bigger priority. That does not appear to be the case. And the last one is from Stephen Keeler. In review of what was presented to the board on January 12th, I have become quite alarmed of the board's willingness to accept this proposal and move forward. The board has displayed inability to ask logical questions. The board accepted casual references in place of qualifying data. The board equated intentions as the only necessary ingredients for acceptance. One of the great mistakes is to judge policies and programs by their intentions rather than their results. The board has not learned this. An investigation into the topic reveals what seems to be a great deal of research. Very troubling, however, is the fact that almost all research is by Thomas and Collier solely. A significant amount of this has been done in states that border Mexico. And I forgot to mention, he is talking about the proposed dual language program. Such activity would certainly seem plausible to promote in the second language Spanish. However, the board must look at what has occurred in the state of North Carolina, 2009 to 2010, year 3. In most cases, by middle school, the two-way dual language students, regardless of subgroup, are scoring as high in reading and math as non-dual language students in the next highest grade, who are typically 1 year older. The curriculum, North Carolina Standard Course Study, is presented in English part of the time and a second language at least half the time: Spanish, Chinese, French, German, or Japanese. All state level tests are administered in English. Students who attended school at least 90 days and took an EOG test were included in the study. First, in Edmonds, where do the students whose home language is Chinese, Vietnamese, Russian, Ukrainian, or Laotian get equal accommodation? The board seems content with causing chaos for first-year children in a setting where they will get 90% Spanish one day on day one, when the other 10 is English, while at home a third language is spoken. Next, by their own writing, these two, quote, educators acknowledge that a 50-50 two-way program can be almost as effective. In addition, the researchers admit that there are conditions and resources that contribute to the varying degrees of better achievement. To the board, is this the best you can do? And so ends the public comments.
Thank you, Director Noble, and everyone for your public comments. Those who wrote more than one, all the public comments will be attached to the minutes of this meeting for public review. Next, we have our consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
This is Ann, move to approve.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote, please. Maybe. Allison, are you on here?
Director McMurray,
Aye.
Director Noble,
Oh, aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye. And the consent agenda is passed. Next, right before we have our reentry update, I would like to invite our students to turn your cameras on and engage in the conversation, because your voices are very important particularly with this report, and we would really like to hear from you. So we have our reentry report. Dr. Balderas?
Thank you. And we have a PowerPoint, so we can get that up if we could. Slide presentation. Thank you. And what we're going to be doing with the board is have a PowerPoint presentation, just give you more details and to help us guide us through the discussion in terms of where we're at. I know we've heard a lot of comments today, and appreciate those comments from folks. I just want to make sure that people understand kind of what the status that we're in. So we can go to the next slide, please. Harmony and Dana.
Yes, good evening, Board of Directors. Again, my name is Harmony Weinberg, and I'm the Communications Manager for the district. And I wanted to talk briefly about our new COVID-19 dashboard. So this is something that we, communications, work with technology and our Student Health Services Department to come up with a public-facing dashboard where we could be transparent and show the numbers of cases in our district. Excuse me. So we launched this in January. And so as you can see, this data also collects our attestation forms. So anyone, whether it's a student, a staff member, or a community member, someone coming in to do contract work, let's say on our facilities, anyone who enters any of our buildings, or and now our students who are involved in some of our conditioning cohorts, they fill out a daily attestation form every day. And so it's important to note, and even if you're not in the building, staff who aren't coming in are required to fill it out. But we really wanted to show the community that number. So since January, there's been over 30,000 attestations filled out. And we have had 9 confirmed COVID-19 cases. And it's important to note that the number that you see of cases is based on a personal account of a staff or student and their positive result, or a call directly from Snohomish Public Health or Snohomish Health District. And so we have only collected information or data of students and staff where there has been transmission risk within the district environment. So for those staff and students who are in a remote setting and do not pose a risk to the school environment, we are not currently collecting that data. And this is available if you go to our website. It is under quick links. We have the second item under quick links is COVID health and safety, and it'll take you right to this page. And this is also the web page that has our COVID-19 health and safety other documented information available. Next slide, and I'll hand it over to Dana.
Thanks, Harmony. Good evening, Board of Directors. Just a quick recap. Stage 1 is in full swing. We opened in Stage 1 10 sites beginning in the middle of November. And our sites, 9 of them are in the Edmond School District, and 1 is offsite. It is at Swedish Hospital, and it's our Project Search students doing some transition work there. We are serving some students who are receiving special education services. Obviously, some students who are receiving special education services are still in a remote setting. We are serving about 150 students. That's increased a little bit as we've had Stage 1 open. Some families have that previously selected remote have changed and now are coming in person. Again, going back to kind of the similar conversations we've had around opening different stages, of course, families have the option of selecting fully remote. So we honored that and shuffled a little bit with some teachers, and students are either remote or in person. And they are accessing their general education minutes per their IEP, their individualized education plan. They are accessing their general education minutes remotely. So if they're in person for their special education services, when they have gen ed time and gen ed access, they zoom into their general education classes. And just a few pictures there of the successes we're having. We recently had progress notes done, which are done at the grading periods, and anecdotally, some great progress as we've had our kids back and are able to be right in front of them. More to come on that. It's been the last couple of weeks, and those progress notes officially get put into our data keeping. And I think that's it, unless there's any questions. All right, next slide.
Thanks, Dana. So right now, Edmonds School District is in the process of bargaining working conditions with the Edmonds Educational Association. Therefore, limited information can be shared, but what we can say is that we're currently bargaining a hybrid model, and I'll leave it at that. Next slide. eHubs, Greg.
So I feel like I've been talking about this for a little while, but I'm excited that we'll be getting the eHubs starting on Thursday, weather permitting, of course. I'm watching the weather as we speak, but we are planning to open high school hubs on the 11th, and our middle school hubs will begin on the 18th. And we will continue to expand those hubs in March to begin serving students that schools identify as needing support. And we will be moving to AM and PM sessions to allow schools to serve more students each day. And I'm ready to go to the next slide. Also wanted to share with you updates on athletics because our Wesco League schools have agreed to begin sports seasons on February 22nd with a modified fall sports season, followed by a modified spring sports season, and then end with a modified winter sports season. Given that we're in stage 2 right now of the state's reopening plan, those guidelines and the WIA guidelines allow our sports to engage in practices and also identify which sports can move from practices to competitions. And we're currently working with our Edmonds Coaches Association to bargain the working conditions that will govern the work that our coaches do so that we can begin in-season practices by February 22nd. And I think we're on to the next slide.
Hey, Greg, could you let the audience know which sports are involved in this very first segment of it for practice and for competition?
Yes, the fall sports. So it'll be our fall sports season will be football, volleyball, girls soccer, tennis, and I'm going to miss one. And cross country.
Yeah.
Cross country. Thank you. I know I went blank for just a second there. And I believe at this point, football is in the practice phase. The other sports are in competition.
Greg, a quick question. I noticed in the Wesco athletic guidelines that were shared with us
Yes.
that there was no mention of staff and athletes wearing masks, which surprised me.
They will wear masks. I'll have to get into that, and I'll have to follow up on that because I know that's in there. I just need to find. I know I saw those guidelines, and our Wesco guidelines I think are much more strict than the WIA guidelines, and we are planning to have athletes wear masks. So I'll follow up and get you more information on that because I know that's in there. I'm just not sure where it is.
Can I also ask you a question on the slide before this on the EL hubs?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know the timing for questions. Who's going to be staffing these hubs?
Right now we have our administrators, and then we also have paraeducators that already work at the school sites, as well as our student intervention coordinators and any other staff that we can use that are already working at school. So it's paraeducators, administrators, student intervention coordinators, and that's primarily the staff that'll be supporting right now.
And so is it going to be set up the same way the eHub for the ones at the Alderwood Middle site?
Yes.
Where they will be accessing their regular classrooms?
Yes.
And these adults who will be there will be help supporting them to be able to understand what's going on and provide resources or whatever to help them, but they're still going to be going online to their regular classroom during that time.
Yes, that's during
Thank you.
That's during the synchronous learning time.
Okay. I think I had one other question. Let me see. No, I think that takes care of it. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Greg, I have a question about the athletics.
Yes.
With the start of the sports season, does that mean that all the physical conditioning opportunities go away?
So once we go into in season, then the conditioning pods that we've been doing initially will stop and we'll move into actual sports seasons. And then all of the WIA rules apply for in season and out of season. So there will be opportunity once fall sports get started, then the other sports will have a period of time once we get those sports started where we can do some conditioning activities again, but we want to get fall sports up and running. So there will be a pause in the conditioning activities while we get fall sports up and running, but then we'll get those for the other sports that are not in season. They'll have an opportunity to go back to doing some conditioning again.
Okay.
All right, so I think I'm next up. Thanks for letting me come speak a bit about technology connectivity updates for our students. I wanted to start by sharing a brief summary of some of the data related to our efforts to provide all of our students with access to internet. Please interrupt with any questions that you have along the way. I'll follow that up with a summary of some of the work that our team has done to provide students and staff with the technology equipment and support that they need. So since April, we provided 620 hotspots to our students. We have more than 150 currently on hand available to distribute. And we've seen utilization of our hotspots at roughly 50%, meaning we've issued over 600. We've seen about 300 of them actually used with devices connected to them. Since August, we provided sponsored internet access via Comcast to approximately 200 families. Our data from Comcast indicates that roughly a quarter of those families have actually utilized the sponsored internet codes that we provided them. And we continue to receive requests from schools to provide hotspots or internet access to students. We're also actively following up with the families that we're not seeing the equipment that we provided being used to try to determine whether it's because the need's gone away or the student might be moving to a different school, things of that nature. So that's ongoing work that's been happening all year long. I wanted to briefly touch on our student tech support efforts. When remote learning began, we created essentially a student help desk for our students and families to be able to call. It accepts both phone calls and emails. We also implemented an online scheduling system for them to do in-person appointments at the ESC. We continue to see a fairly high number of calls, roughly 12 per hour to the student support line. And as a reminder, it's open from 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m., I believe, 5 days a week. We also see a similar number of emails each day, roughly 12 per hour. And then we're doing about 5 or 6 appointments per hour at the ESC for those in-person tech support or swaps of equipment. I know that we've each heard of different experiences that families and students have had throughout the year and last year. And we took this school year as an opportunity to try to improve on what we learned in the spring of 2019-20. And there are a couple of ways I wanted to share that we are modifying our support or enhancing it to try to address those needs a little bit better. Firstly, we've implemented no contact appointments via an Amazon locker. You may have noticed at the back of the ESC. Essentially, the way that works is we're interacting with the family and identify a need for them to pick up new hardware. And if they are comfortable providing us an Amazon account email address, we can email them an invitation to come to the ESC, give them a locker with a code, and place that equipment in there for them so that they can come without interacting with us whatsoever. And the other benefit to that we didn't really anticipate going in, but is really interesting and pretty cool for our families is that we've seen them come well outside of the hours that we would normally be able to provide support. So I heard that there was a pickup last night after midnight. And while that's a bit unconventional from a tech support perspective, I think it's great that we've been able to provide a way for families to get the equipment whenever they need it. So that was pretty cool. Let's see, another new way we provide support is through a Zoom drop-in service. So essentially we have tech staff that are in a Zoom meeting all day long, just waiting for students to drop in to that standard link. And we've seen that very successful. It's only been available, I think, for the last 3-4 weeks or so, but it's been a great way for students to drop in, get the help they need one-on-one, and then get right back to class. We also increased the hiring of temporary staff to support our students and families with technology at the start of the fall. And that significantly reduced the amount of backlog with phone calls, voicemails, and email messages. So we're able to get those addressed much more promptly than we had previously. As a whole, the tech department is working primarily remotely. The exceptions are the student support staff I mentioned and our help desk, and those involved in getting the hotspots distributed to our families. But otherwise, I think that's kind of a summary of where we're at and what we're working on. So I welcome any questions. Otherwise, thank you. Fun.
I have I had read that Comcast is doubling their speeds on Internet Essentials. Is that something that will affect you or make you want to promote it a little bit more?
Yeah, that's a great point. I guess I will say, not being familiar with that update that you have, one struggle that we've had is Comcast has a data limitation, which for families that have 2 or more students or 1 or 2 working parents that are also at home, that definitely impacts their ability to engage in online learning, despite the fact that we provided them that internet access. So in technology, we provided a family with Comcast, but had to augment that with a hotspot or 2, simply because that limitation is a real factor. So that's great to hear. I'm going to dig into that further.
Great.
But is your help desk offered in multiple languages?
That's a great question. The district recently changed the language service that we use for translation from Language Line to, I believe, Language Link. And that's a service that our staff does have available. So when we receive a call, we can work through a translator to try to communicate with the family in their native language. And in addition, when we receive an email or a call from a school, we can work to get that service set up in advance so that when we call the family, the person that they're speaking with is using their native language automatically. So. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So I have a few childcare updates, as I've been getting a lot of questions and inquiries from families about what's going to happen during stage 2 and all of that. Because right now, our childcare providers, and thank you to all of them, Right at School, Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, and Kids Crew out of Mount Lake Terrace Parks and Rec. They're doing a great job, and they're providing full day care in different parts of our district, as you know. But when we approach stage 2, there will be before and after school childcare available at every elementary school, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And there will be full day childcare at former Alderwood Middle School on Wednesdays. And we're going to see if we can expand multiple days at that location, and more to come on that. And there will be also full day childcare available at former Woodway Elementary School on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That's 5 days a week. And we want to thank YMCA for covering all 5. And we're getting ready for any kind of movement that bargaining will require us to do. And just want to say thank you to our partners. They've been really great and flexible and very nimble every step of the way.
Dr. Chung, I'm wondering,
Mhm.
are all the childcare slots that are available currently filled?
In certain locations they are, but we have backup locations if our providers need more space. So each of our providers also have buildings that they can expand their services if there's not enough space in their current buildings. Now, there's some issues with staffing. There's been a lot of childcare staff turnover. And so one of the challenges that each of our providers have is recruiting enough people to expand their programs. But if there is more space needed, we're available and willing to support that. I would encourage our families to reach out to each of our childcare providers and see what they can work out, because on any given day, different numbers of students show up. So it's not like 30 kids come every single day, and they can pick and choose which day there are openings. And I don't know exactly which day of the week there are openings, which day of the week are completely full at each of our sites for now. So I encourage our families to reach out to them.
And do parents know where to go to get this information? So they would know if it's going to be filled or where there are openings, so we can address that?
Right. On our website, we have contact information. So if they just call or email our partners, they will get back to them as soon as possible. Thank you, Director Kadams, for those great questions.
And appreciate all the staff that presented, and wanted just to see if I can open up for the students to have any comments regarding their current experiences and how it's going after the first semester, just really quickly, or comment to any of the above in terms of the pods. I know some of you are athletes as well. So if I could, any student comments at all before we move on?
I'm glad to hear that sports are starting this month. It's going to be really nice to get out of the house. I think second semester is going well. At this point, students should be very familiar with the online learning world. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Kai.
Yeah, sure. So second semester, I think, having just started, not too many places to go wrong yet. But I think we've definitely learned a lot from first semester in terms of what works and what doesn't. And one of the things I know that we'd been talking about in the previous meeting was emphasizing that student wellness survey. And I know there was a little bit of confusion and a little bit of clunkiness in terms of like, hey, fill out this survey and you need your student ID, which in our situation right now, anything to make it more convenient will get people to do it more. Having to go find the student ID and stuff like that was a little bit, I think, has encouraged people to, or discouraged people from doing it. So there's that a little bit of feedback, but overall, I think, you know, we're off to a good start. We've had a semester to kind of opine on like what works and what doesn't, and we'll see how it goes.
Thanks, Ratika. Isabella, did you have a comment?
With Ratika and Kai about how like we're already pretty used to online learning, so I think it will be a little easier second semester. But I still want to point out that like first semester was obviously very difficult for us, and I think second semester still will be difficult. For that, I think it will be easy.
You just muted. Sorry, Isabella, could you repeat the last part?
I think you guys heard. Sorry.
We can't hear you. I'm sorry, Isabella.
Sorry. Anyone else want to?
So far second semester has been good. I think the transition from first and second was a bit slow, and then all of a sudden it just went boom, and then I have like a buttload of work to do. So it's kind of rough, but I think it's really important to emphasize to students to organize, especially with like so many different classes, and since everything's online, it's easy to forget nowadays without physical papers in their hands. So I think teachers reminding students to like be organized and trying to help motivate them somehow is a good idea for the start of semester. So.
Yeah, just to reiterate what everyone else said, I think the adjustment from first to second semester went pretty smoothly from my personal experience. I think we've all gotten used to like the expectations that the teachers have for us in classes and what we're expected to do. So there's not a lot of confusion in that standpoint in terms of like academics. We've all gotten used to like the assignments and how we're supposed to do them, I guess, in a way. But I think the district's resources that they've been giving us are really helpful. For example, like with the internet, and then with the lunch meals and breakfast meals, those are really helpful for the students who need them. And I think the support that the district is giving is very helpful to helping us students succeed. So thank you.
One quick thing that I forgot to mention, Vaughn, that I'm mentioning the resources reminded me. I think if there are, things like that available where we can go for like tech support and stuff like that. I know I've experienced in many classes where people are like, hey, this thing isn't working or that thing's not working. I think if we could streamline the process where if something like that's happening, normally if we're in school, the teacher would say, okay, go to the library and, talk to whoever to fix his computer problem. But if we, if that became kind of the norm for how we do tech issues in class, I think that would also make things a little bit smoother. So, because there's not, like, this is the first time hearing of the whole resources for families and students in terms of technology on Zoom. So I think, putting those out far and wide would be helpful.
Thank you, Ritika. And just to finish off, I know we have Mr. Barnes here is going to be speaking, but our nutrition services, I think this month we would be at 2 million meals served, or just distributed. So 2 million meals to our community that's been served. So that's just pretty phenomenal when you think about how many meals. That's again, just really appreciate all the support and as a collective that the community's had as we continue to provide support for our families.
Before we leave the reentry update, and I'm going to honor a request that Harmony made, that we identify who we are for people who might be listening on the phone. So this is Nancy Kadam speaking. I'm not a student, I'm a school board member. I'm a student of life. In terms of the reentry update, I'm wondering, now that second semester has closed and the panorama window has closed, when will the board be receiving data on what the classroom-based assessments and the other assessments that are being given, how we look in terms of halfway through the year? And if we could also see the panorama data much more in detail than what we saw. I mean, I think it was just mentioned at the last meeting, a couple of items on it, but I think it would be really helpful if we could see really what's going on in terms of the social emotional learning. I realized that, and I appreciate Ritika pointing out that the kids had to put in their student ID, which I know is a real problem if you don't have your ID badge on you, and that's unfortunate. I'm sure that's a way that they can follow up on students who ask for follow-up. But I think it's important for us to have a public meeting where we present that data so we can really look at what's happening both academically and social emotional learning wise for the students now that we're halfway through the year.
I can speak to that quickly. While the semester, the second semester has started, we still have the process of all of the grading getting entered and of course to produce report cards. So there's the turnaround on that isn't immediate. And then once those data are available, our assessments research and evaluation team can start processing those and produce a report similar to what we had at the quarter that we shared with our board of directors. The panorama survey closes this week. And so again, those data, as soon as the students complete it, the dashboard shows those data, updates those nightly. But in terms of a more district-wide analysis, we'll need some time to compile those reports and produce those in readable ways. Other data that have been referenced at times were the iReady data, which is a reading and mathematics assessment. And those windows closed prior to the end of the semester, the end of the first semester, and we have some preliminary reports on those. So I can circle back to Dr. Balderas and see what kind of format the board would prefer, if that's at a study session or in another format. I think it depends on the level of report you want and the times that are available. And we'll do our best to sync those so that we can put that all in one meeting.
Thank you.
Anything else, board? Okay, let's go on to our visual and performing arts report with Scott Barnes, manager. Take it away.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen here.
I'm Scott Barnes. I'm the manager of Visual and Performing Arts, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you tonight very quickly what's happening in our music and arts programs in the district. We started off the year and we were taking a look at holistically the value of the arts. It's been a tough year, to be quite honest. The arts are community-based and we work together. This has been a challenge to make it work, but we really focus on the fact that the arts support social emotional well-being of students in schools. They nurture creation in a welcoming school environment, and they're supported as a part of the well-rounded education for all students. And that's been our goal, to really produce that for all students. We began the year looking at social emotional needs of our kids. Our music programs, our theater programs are very much a community, and they are a place that is right for building those social emotional connections. And so we very purposely started the year in creating those communities and continue to do that even in this remote setting. So what are some of the things that we've done that are different? We've used technology very effectively to connect with students and connect with the creative process. As we looked at our curriculum and the standards that we had to teach, we focus those less on the performance aspects and more on the creative aspects. In music, we have a program called Smart Music. It's a program that students can access, and it has their method books and the band, orchestra, choir pieces that they're performing loaded in. They can play their part with the background track of a full ensemble. It's a way that they can play in real time with the group on the skill level that they're at. So teachers assign exercises, and the students are able to play those along with the background track. As you've probably discovered in any of the Zoom meetings you've been on, even when we did the Pledge of Allegiance today, there's a syncing problem with any of this technology. And so the concept of groups performing live together over the internet doesn't really happen. Any of the virtual performances that you hear are heavily doctored and they're remixed outside of the actual performance piece. So Smart Music is a way for students to work on things individually, working on common things together. So we also can use this for assessment. So students can be assessed on those lines that they're using. Soundtrap is another technology that we've used, and that's been for our choral program. It's a way for students to create music. I just saw a great composition that was submitted today from one of our students, and we've been using that at the secondary level. Upbeat's a program that we've used for chamber music or small ensembles. It's a Seattle company that developed this, and what they did is they got rid of the phasing problem for small groups so that a group of 4 to 6 people can actually play live together over the internet and make it work. And so for some of our higher end ensembles, our string quartets in the chamber ensembles, some of our jazz combos, this has been a great technology to be able to give them that creative space to continue the learning that they've been accustomed to. And then in elementary school, we have a program called FLAT that is a compositional program that we've used for students throughout. Some of the ways that this has been applied, some of the great things that we've seen is at the end of the semester, we had a number of our teachers that had solo nights where students had prepared a small section of a song. They did a recital type night where all the parents were involved and the families were involved. I had the joy of being a part of some of these and not only seeing the growth in student musicianship, but also the family engagement and the celebration of that. It was really kind of a special thing. Our teachers have also worked together in a number of collaborative things, trying to build a K or a 6 through 12 community. And an example of this is our orchestra teachers who have brought together students in our 6th grade program through our 12th grade program in a mentoring model once a month on Wednesday afternoons. And they have a session where the high school students actually work with our 6th grade students and motivate them. In addition, we bring in a guest artist for each one of these that motivates these kids, trying again just to make that connection that is beyond grade levels and beyond those building levels. I think the last school board meeting, you had a presentation from our theater department at Meadowdale High School that did the virtual performance. Our other theater programs are working on similar things right now as they're going forward. And then as far as visual arts, we continue to do our virtual calendar art submissions. We're starting that process right now. And we're working with the Edmonds Arts Festival Foundation for their art show, which won't be normal time this year, but they will be doing something in August. So we're working on that. The biggest challenge for our visual arts program this year was supplies. As we started the year, our supplies at the secondary level are based on student fees that they pay, and that provides the supplies. Those are community supplies that we use in the building. So we knew right away that we would need additional supplies to send home individual packets for kids. We're able to do that in the fall, reinforcing the fees that students weren't able to pay with building resources and district resources. And then we got a grant from the Edmonds Arts Festival Foundation for second semester to help supply some of those supplies that we weren't able to supply. And so that's been the biggest challenge of remote, because every student needs a separate set of supplies. We can't share paint, we can't share those kind of things. But we've got those in their hands now, and they're doing well. This is what our theaters look like right now. They're empty spaces. My theater teachers are probably the teachers that are the strongest voice of wanting kids back as soon as possible so they can create. Their whole concept of student performance is kids together on the stage performing. So they're pushing hard to make this happen. Whether it's virtual, whatever parameters we put in place, they want to perform. And so they're pushing to make that happen. I'll remind you that this last spring, our music program was again, for the 14th year in a row, recognized by the NAM Foundation as one of the best communities for music education. This is a reflection of the quality of our program, the quality of our teachers, our community, your support, and just that whole community engagement. It's been an honor to be a part of this program, and really it's because of the outstanding folks that we have in our system. I will let you know that 2021, we won't be receiving this award. We didn't apply because we didn't meet the criteria, and that's simply because of activities of the pandemic, but we'll be back in 2022. I wanted to share this very quickly with you, and I put it in here because I know you looked at these materials ahead of time. This was a letter I got from Joe Divig, and Joe is the Fine Arts Coordinator in the Olympia School District, and he sent this to me just after Thanksgiving. He has a nephew that's at Seaview Elementary School, and you can read in the red, as they watched those programs, they were so impressed with what's going on in those music classes. They're not just marking time and having fun, they're actually learning things. And so to me, that's just a validation of the great work that's happening in our elementary programs. And I don't think we give them enough shout outs during the year. So I wanted to make sure to include that in here. Some exciting news that just came out through the Department of Health and OSPI, the update to the ability for students, instrumentalists and vocalists to perform live in spaces with a number of restrictions. And so as we look at bringing students back, they will have the opportunity within these guidelines to sing or play an instrument. And you can see the guidelines that are on there, a limit of 30 minutes at a time with air changes in the room. Our Department of Health has put spacing at 9 feet for those instrumental students, and for the vocalists, the recommendations nationally are 6 feet, but they put it at 9. And with groups not to exceed 15 students. Some of their guidelines will be adjusted in the next rollout. Classes like string classes, guitar classes, piano classes, anything that's not wind produced, those will actually be treated with the same regulations as typical classrooms. And so that will be in the updates of the guidance that comes out. I included this video for you if you want to watch it. It's about an hour long, but it shows the National Federation of High School Studies that they've been doing at the University of Colorado and the University of Maryland this entire year. And that was really to look at the impact of music and aerosolization studies for vocalists and for instrumentalists and how it could be made safe. And so the guidance that has shaped the national policy has really come out of these studies. And what we found is that students with proper masks, instrumentalists would have a mask that has a slit that they put their mouthpiece in and play, and a bell covering that will reduce the amount of aerosol in the air to the same level that a student with a regular mask speaking in a classroom would have. Similarly, with vocalists, there's a special mask that I'll show you in a sec, that if they're wearing that, they're able to sing, and again, with no more mitigation of aerosol expense than you would if you were speaking in a classroom. So for us, that was exciting news. We're excited that the Department of Health is now updated to include some of this information so that, again, as we look at bringing students back, the ability to make music live and to do theater live, we've got some avenues to look at that. These are some examples of what those masks look like, and I've received some samples of these and tried them out. They're a little funky to play my French horn with, but they're definitely, you can do it, and it works just fine. The mask on the left is a vocal mask. The key thing with this is it's got a MERV 13 filter in it, and it's got space so that the students can vocalize, they can move their jaw and they produce the sounds that they need to and sing, where a regular mask, you really can't do that. And so that's something that we need to look at providing for our vocal students. And then on the right are a typical mask that a band student would wear, and then a bell cover that would cover, and they make those for all the instruments. So we've got some samples of those that we've looked at. We think that it gives us a route to bring students together and play when we make the call to get these ordered. Overall, as we look at student engagement, this has been our biggest question mark and our biggest focus and concern over the year. Our middle school and high school enrollment is good this year. We've held those numbers from last year, but engagement is a challenge because it's a different activity. It's not the group activity that we're used to. We've seen that our high-flying, strong musicians are pretty independent and they're doing great things. The kids that are challenged are the kids that need some extra help and special attention. And we're not able to give them enough of that because it needs to be a little bit more hands-on. But we're confident that as we pull out of this, we'll be able to bring those kids back and get them back on board. Our elementary band and orchestra numbers are down. We started the year at about 70% of normal, which wasn't a surprise, and it's actually played out as a national average. We're right in where everybody else is. We've lost some kids during the year, so those numbers are actually a little bit less than they've been. Our elementary choirs haven't been meeting this fall. And so as we look at enrollment for next school year, which is we're in process of doing that right now, there's a big concern about students enrolling in keeping these programs strong, and the need for us to keep the core of our performing ensembles intact so that we can rebuild the powerhouse of a program that we have. We anticipate that we'll have some dip in enrollment this next year. We hope that it doesn't impact staffing. And we anticipate that it's a one-year thing because we'll be able to bounce back. We're very confident of that. We do see some added challenges. The continued discussion that I've had with you every time I meet with you about the challenges, especially in our middle schools, of having one elective and students being limited to that. When we look at that and students in our music programs or in our visual art programs or in our STEM programs or in our new AVID programs, if students take that elective, that's all they can take. And so it really pits all these groups against one another. And it's not necessarily the greatest thing for kids. We know that students in our music programs have been successful. They're more apt to graduate from high school and continue on into higher education and do well in school. We want that to expand and be a part for as many students as possible. I do have some great news for you. This is the meeting that traditionally we would have all our All-State and All-Northwest kids with you doing certificates. We have a smaller group this year, but The All Northwest and All State groups were canceled this year, but we did auditions for those as a group. And we had these 5 students from Edmonds Woodward High School were all selected into the All Northwest bands or jazz bands. This is the very top students from the 6 Northwest states. And so it's an outstanding accomplishment. Our numbers are less because the audition was totally on the students to take care of because of the remote format. It wasn't assisted by teachers at all. We also had these 6 students that were selected for the Washington State, all-state bands and orchestras. And so we're very excited for those students. We have printed off their certificates and gotten those signed. We've sent those to them with a letter of congratulations. And so we're excited for that, what they're able to do. And these are, again, are the very top musicians in our district, some of the very top in the entire West Coast. I want to give you a quick update on what our teachers are doing as far as professional development, and thank you for your support of that. We're able to utilize some of the Title IV Part A funds to pay for conference registration for a number of music teachers. We've got our Northwest Division Conference that kicks off this Thursday. It runs all this President's Day weekend. We've got 120 sessions and about 22 headliners as part of that conference. The focus will be on innovation. Ann Fennell is one of our headliners. She's known for her work on the NAFME Innovations Council, and she's the music program supervisor in San Diego. And so our teachers will learn about ways that we can expand our music program to meet the needs of all kids and not just band, orchestra, jazz kids. We want to do more than that. Scott Edgar is another headliner. His focus, and he's written the book, Music Education, Social Emotional Learning. We're excited to have him. He's probably the preeminent expert on this in the nation right now. And so he'll be working with our teachers. And Connie McCoy is another one. She's written Culturally Responsive Teaching and Music Education. As we look at that focus, being culturally responsive and meeting the needs of kids and providing opportunities, Connie, again, is one of the national experts. In addition, we have headliners in all the curricular categories, and our teachers will be, again, taking these classes all President's Day weekend and working with these folks and learning from the very best in the nation. And so we're excited for that opportunity. This is a slide that I generally share with you of what we're got going on, all the great things. This is a slide from last year. None of these things happened this year. And I highlighted the one bullet that approximately 1,242 separate performances. That was what we did last year. Were scheduled last year. None of those happened this year. And so we, as a group, are just really focused on moving forward. And our goal is to be back live and to create performances for kids. We know that's where that real connection for our students is. That's where the real passion can grow. We grow in community, we grow together. And so we're excited at the opportunity to come back together whenever that is and make the very best of that. So at this point, I'll stop and see if there's any questions.
I have a question, and thank you for the presentation. This is Deborah.
Hi, Deborah.
Thank you so much for the presentation. And I have a child who is in jazz band, and I've had 2 other kids come through who were one in orchestra and one in band. And I do know how very strong our music programs are. What is the plan? You hinted at it. We've got PPE that we can use, and we've got guidelines that say we can bring kids back. Are we moving forward with a plan? Or are you advocating for a plan to bring kids back to create some music?
That's a great question. So we've talked to our teachers about the option of doing like outside of the school things like athletics have. At this point, most of our teachers are tentative to do anything beyond what we do in the classroom. And so I think we'll move forward when we open those classrooms. That's kind of the plan. We've got the information that we need to order all the PPE gear. And it's just a matter of getting the go-ahead to do that and looking at the timing. We know that there's about a month wait on delivery for those things because of the national demand right now. But we can get that equipment in and ready to go once we make that order. And so working out it with the limitations that are in there right now with 15 kids, even if we're looking at a hybrid system, we've got to figure out ways that we can make that work in when we bring back, especially our secondary programs, because we have many classes that are more than 30 kids. And so we've got to be creative in that model. So that we're thinking through that right now, but we don't have it all worked out.
Thank you.
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
just wondering, I'm also, my gears are turning because, I have definitely heard some kids are really concerned, it's a tough year especially for our middle of the road students who look to music as really an opportunity to collaborate, to socialize, and they're not getting that, through no fault of our own. But my concern is we're going to lose quite a few of those students next year if we don't do something for them.
Yeah, that's our concern too. And we can't bring them back until we're given the go ahead that it's safe to bring kids back into the building. So that's part of the whole phase plan as we look at bringing students in, and we will advocate to get our music kids going as quickly as we can.
Thank you, Scott. This is Ann.
Hi, Ann.
Hi, Scott. I'm just wondering, so are you, to clarify, are you saying that our music student or our music teachers are not looking at some sort of hub model or pod model, but they are going to wait until the middle school and high school students as a whole are in the different phases are actually back physically in school buildings?
The last meeting that I had with teachers, they shared with me that they had grave concerns about bringing kids back until it was deemed that it was safe for kids to be back in school buildings. And so I think they are super excited to have kids back in person. They want to do it when it's safe. And so that's that tipping point. Whether we can do something earlier than the whole school coming back, that's something that we'll need to continue a conversation about. The other thing that I talked with them about is if we're looking at doing that, we want to make sure that it's equitable across the district. We don't want to just have one group do it and not be available to others throughout the district. So we need to get some buy-in overall if we're going to make that move.
Hi, my name's Isabel and I'm a
Hi,
student.
Isabel.
And I used to play the saxophone and I was curious how the mask would work with reed instruments.
Great question. So the mask actually has a slit in it with an overlap on it. So the reed would actually just slide inside and so it would go inside the mask and we would play it there. And so it's encapsulated within the mask.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sorelia. I'm in chamber orchestra and I play cello, and I also attend as a mentor for the orchestra jams you mentioned.
Yeah, they're great.
From my perspective as a mentor too, I also do a thing with my high school where I go to Alderwood Middle School each Monday, and I teach the middle schoolers there. And I think that's one of the best days I enjoy through my week, even
great.
education. So I think music really does help within these hard times, and it's important to emphasize that to the students as well. And it's also very different this year because of we can't be together or we can't play together physically through Zoom even because of the lag and whatnot and internet issues. So it's very interesting and creative how the way the teachers and directors and other staff have come together to help the kids express themselves. So I appreciate that.
I appreciate you saying that so much. And those orchestra Zoom classes that we've had have been phenomenal. And I've been so impressed with high school mentors like you that have stepped in and worked with the younger kids and to build that community, because you're giving back. And actually you're making a huge difference in those younger lives. So thank you for doing that.
It's Ratika, and I mean, I just wanted to, I appreciate this presentation so much. I have been with the music program since like 5th grade, orchestra all the way through elementary and middle, and then choir at MTHS for the last 3 years. And it's this year, as you mentioned, and has just been, it's been challenging, of course, because like what the situation we were in, you can't sing together through Zoom. And I mean, of course, one of the main concerns also has been for us, as Director Kilgore mentioned earlier, is just keeping those numbers, because like in some parts of the some programs are already pretty small, and we've made do, because being together and being able to perform together is always one of the biggest like highlights. We didn't get to do the Breakfast with Santa this year, and it felt so weird, because I mean it's been something that's we've done every year, but not that it needs to be mentioned, but like going back is obviously the highest priority for all of us, just being able to be together and perform, because even now there are equity issues with even like recording, for example. One of the things that we originally had thought to do, well, there are some people who can't play their instruments, or some people that can't sing in that environment, and so it's the sooner we get to be able to get together, the better. But the music program just means so much to so many people, and appreciate the thought.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to hear a student voice. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you. Great. Is there any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you for the report.
Yep.
And
thank you.
I look forward to more practice for my kid. So, I'm surprised he's not practicing now in the background. He often finds that time right around when we're doing board meetings. But thank you very much. Next, we have our budget and finance report. Lydia Selly.
Thank you. Again, I'm Lydia Selly. I'm with the business office and here to report on the budget report for December 2020. And for all of us accountants, we can finally put 2020 to rest. So after this meeting. So Sherelle, if you could turn to the next page. So in December, just want to point out that we do pay all of the principal that is due on our outstanding bonds and half of the interest. And so don't be alarmed that expenditures are at 91%, because the only remaining payment is the interest payment that is due in June, which has been properly budgeted. So next slide. I want to point out just a few things on this slide, some variances that are directly related to the pandemic. So first off, local support non-tax is lagging behind last year. Our primary source of revenues in that category is local meal sales. Those have been replaced in federal special purpose because we are receiving funding from USDA for the free meals that we're serving. Also in local support non-tax is rentals, which is almost at zero since we're not able to open up our facilities. Interest income, which unfortunately has decreased because of low interest rates. Fines and fees, which aren't occurring as often. In state general purpose, we have received an advance look because we've received our January apportionment report from the state of Washington. And because of our enrollment decline between state general purpose and state special purpose. We are approximately 10 million below budget. I will go into a little bit more detail next week at our study session. On the expenditure side, in classified employees, we are well below the level we were at last year because we have a lot of vacancies, unfortunately layoffs, and are offsetting some of the revenue deficit in that category. And then supplies and purchase services are at about the same rate as a year ago. Travel, you can see, is almost non-existent, and that is usually just travel, that the mileage that we're required to reimburse any individual who has to travel between multiple school sites. Okay, then the revenue. Go ahead.
Yeah, could I ask, before we go on, could I ask a question? This is Nancy again.
Yes.
So under expenditures for capital outlay, I'm wondering if the reason why the current is so much higher than was budgeted was that like for HVAC or other kinds of things like that, or why is that difference so big?
Those are, again, the timing of the copier leases. So we purchase the copier leases, and then we recapture some of the costs on a per click copy charge to the schools and departments. Okay, I think we can turn to the next slide. So this is graphs and charts that depict what I just went over on the other slide. When you look at state revenues year to date, through December, OSPI is funding us based on projected enrollment. So you'll see a little bit of a variation in the coming months when they true us up to actual enrollment. And then we can go on to the next slide. Again, just a picture of how we're doing compared to last year on the various large categories, such as certificated staffing, classified staffing, and benefits. Okay, next on to the line graph. So the blue line shows how we are projecting that we're doing and how we're going to end the year. We have seen some improvement over the 18-19 school year. So that is good news. We increased in 18-19, increased in 19-20, projecting a decrease certainly this year with lack of apportionment and some other reasons. But if we can hold above the 18-19 levels, then we're making good headway. And then onto the enrollment chart. So between November and December, we were basically flat. I think it's a 7 student variance is all. And then the subsequent reports are our mandatory budget status reports in the state format for each fund. So does anybody have any questions on December?
This is Anne on the enrollment graph. This isn't a great year, and I'm just wondering, do we have any data on whether or not the loss of students is because they're just not engaging in school, or whether or not they've actually left the area? We're looking at a fairly large drop in kids. I'm just wondering, where are they?
So the drop from September to October has some explanation. So students could attend any school day in September and be counted. So anecdotally, we believe that some joined, tried it, and then changed their plans. Versus normally in September, you can only count one of the first 4 days. So, and then the decreases October, November, December are more consistent with previous years. It's that large drop between September and October when they decided that this system of learning perhaps was not for them.
And this is Ann again. So do we know, are our numbers consistent with what other large districts in the state of Washington are experiencing?
I don't know, but that is something I could review for sure. I could get some data on large districts, particularly in this region, and get back to you.
So Director McMurray, this is Superintendent Balderas. You know, I did have data pulled up from our team, and from compared to last year to this year, we've had a confirmed transfer to a private school or being homeschooled. In 2020, there was 21 kids, and for 2021 at this time, we have 139 kids. Also, just the unknown. There's a tagline of just unknown, and then 2020 that was 48 kids. For 2021, 85 kids. So, and I can send this to the board in a Friday memo with some explanation from Brandon and Rob's department. So this is something I pulled up just to see where kids are going. So I can send this to the board. There's a lot of other data points there, but the major point was the 21 kids in 2020 that were the transfer out to private or homeschool compared to the 139 this year.
Thank you, Dr. Balderas. Okay, Sherelle, I think we can stop screen sharing. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Lydia. Next, we have unfinished business. Our first item is a second reading to adopt revised policy 6700, nutrition, health, and physical education. So do I hear a motion?
This is Karen. Director Chase, move to approve.
I second it. It's Nancy.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. This is Deborah. Moved and seconded to adopt revised policy 6700. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Director McMurray?
Aye.
Director Noble?
Aye.
Director Chase?
Aye.
Director Kilgore?
Aye.
Director Kadams?
Aye.
And the motion passes. And where are we? 6700, policy number 6700, nutrition, health, and physical education is approved. Next, we have a second reading to adopt revised policy 2255, alternative learning experience courses. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve policy 2255.
This is Ann, seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt revised policy 2255. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote, please.
Director McMurray?
Anne,
Director McMurray,
Sorry, yeah, I said aye.
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore.
aye. The motion passes. We've adopted revised policy 2255, alternative learning experience courses. Next, we have a second reading to adopt revised policy, board policy 3205, sexual harassment of students prohibited. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve. This is Gary.
Karen, second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt revised policy 3205. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Director McMurray,
Aye.
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore.
Aye. And the policy 3205 is approved, the revised policies. Next, we have a second reading to adopt. Oh, you missed. Okay. We have a second reading to adopt new policy 3424, opioid related overdose reversal. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the new policy 3424.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt new policy 3424, opioid related overdose reversal. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote.
Director McMurray,
Aye.
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore.
Aye. And the motion passes. And we've adopted new policy 3424. Next, we have a second reading to adopt new board policy 4300, limiting immigration enforcement in schools. Do I hear a motion?
This is Ann, move to approve.
I'll second it. It's Nancy.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded to adopt new policy 4300, limiting immigration enforcement in schools. Is there any discussion?
Guys, I did still have one question on that requirement that we could not ask the country a kid was born in. It's my understanding that the home language survey, which is required to be given to all students coming into the district so as a start to determine their English ELL abilities, that does ask the country, ask their home language and the country they're born in. So is this going to be changed?
Thank you, Director Noble. As a new policy, we would look at other policies and make revisions as necessary to cross-reference and making sure that we're, again, we're following procedures. I know that OSPI currently has that listed as well. I don't know if Dr. Viguera is on the line, if he can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, that's correct. So SPI still has a question in the home language survey. So I believe it was some conversation about being an optional question for our parents and families, but I have not seen any other guidelines from OSPI at this point.
So to answer your question directly, Director Noble, is that we would look at OSPI guidance to see what needs to be shifted, and to align policies, we would make that optional for families as well to make sure that it's aligned.
Well, it seems to me if that's an OSPI required survey, then perhaps our policy would have to be revised in order to allow the OSPI required survey instead of, I don't understand how you could change OSPI required survey.
I believe, as Dr. Viguera said, that that's optional. Dr. Viguera, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, and Director Noel, this was a new, I believe, requirement that was August 2020. So OSPI, again, we're still waiting for directions from OSPI, but you're totally right. The home language survey, we cannot change it without OSPI authorization.
So it sounds like we're in a conundrum there. We're passing a policy that we're going to violate immediately because we can't violate OSPI guidelines either. I don't understand where we are then.
Director Noble, additionally, on the home language survey, it is accurate that we can't alter it, but the component of the country of origin does not have to be completed for students to qualify for EL services. So it is in the section that can be left blank if families wanted to.
And this is Greg Schwab. Director Noble, I wanted to add too that the intent of this language was so that we don't prevent students from enrolling. And so if a student doesn't provide their country of origin, country of birth, we still would enroll them. And I believe that's the intent of this language is. So the question would remain in districts, and it says districts can inquire, but it can't be, what it can't be is a condition of enrollment. That a new student coming into the district has to share their country of birth. And I believe that's the intent of this language, and that's what we're trying to get at.
It basically says that, where's that section? It says the district shall not inquire about. If you give them the survey, you're asking that question, so you're violating the policy. Your policy says you will not inquire. But may review, but shall not inquire about, request, and you're requesting that information. Even if they're not required to fill it out, you are still asking it. So I'm uncomfortable with a policy that's inconsistent with what we're doing. Or maybe we should wait for OSPI guidance on it. I don't know.
And we are awaiting a response from OSPI. Kelly Moses, our Director of English Learners, has inquired with OSPI on that. So we are waiting a response from OSPI.
So one option is we could go ahead and adopt this policy, and once OSPI does give guidance, because we know that they're very busy with giving guidance on opening, we can adjust our policy. But I do think that this is such an important issue that to not have a policy is, I think, a bigger issue than to adjust the language on one optional question while we await OSPI would be my suggestion. And we can just flag it for needing updating when we get some additional language would be my thoughts on this.
I would agree with Director Chase in terms of just the title. It's limiting immigration enforcement in schools and really limiting the access to information from ICE that have been on campuses the last 4 years and traumatized our families. So I absolutely agree with Director Chase. Is the purpose of this is really to provide schools some guidance in terms of limiting information for people that have and to protect families. To protect our families, because we serve all. So I think I would concur if that's my recommendation as well, and make adjustments as we get guidance, because I think OSPI has received questions on this and they're just backlogged trying to get out data. But again, I serve at the pleasure of the board in terms of what the board wants to do.
This is Anne. The way that it's written to me, under the gathering immigration related information section under item number 1, it says district staff may review but not inquire about. With an OSPI survey, that's not district staff. That is a document, an item that is going through OSPI. That's not us doing it. And then it says that the district policies and procedures for gathering have to be a certain way, but again, this is OSPI doing something. It's not the district independently asking for that information. And based on that, I understand it's a rocky area, but I think that given that that the problem isn't with us, it's with OSPI catching up, that I'm okay approving it as written.
I love that explanation, Anne. You always come up with good ideas. I totally concur with you.
Fantastic. Is there any more discussion? I would just ask one more question that we came up with. Does this prevent teachers from inviting students to share their experiences?
No, it does not.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Director McMurray,
Aye.
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye. And the motion passes and we've adopted new board policy 4300. And now we're on to new business. First, we have a single reading, approved project award and budget authorization for the Briar Terrace Middle School roof replacement project. Is there a motion?
This is Ann. I move to approve.
I seconded. It's Nancy.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the project award and budget authorization for the roof replacement at Briar Terrace. Is there any discussion?
This is Ann. Just given the age of the school, I'm not surprised it needs a new roof.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Director McMurray,
Aye.
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye, and the motion passes and the roof is going forward. Or has gone forward. The next we have a first reading, no action, the adoption of revised policy 3510, associated student bodies. No motion, but is there any discussion?
Yes, this is Ann. Could I get an explanation on, some of it looked like just maybe grammar or whatever. Can I get an explanation as to the reason for all of the changes?
Certainly. So a lot of the changes are grammatical in nature. The big change is that House Bill 1660, which was passed in 2020, requires districts to waive extracurricular fees for students who qualify for the free and reduced meal program. So we are, in addition to those few little grammar cleanups, the majority of the change is that we are changing our policy to be in compliance with House Bill 1660 and providing those opportunities. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Next, we have a first reading, no action, adoption of new board policy 5404, family, maternity, and military caregiver leave. Is there any discussion?
Yes, there's something in here that, and I may be reading it incorrectly, so getting your guidance would be helpful, but it seems like there's contradictory information. So under paragraph 1A, it says care for a newborn or adopted child of the employee who is under the age of 18 at the time of placement for adoption. Okay, gets these, the employees get that benefit. And then under paragraph 4, that starts with the district will grant leave upon the same terms to male employees as available to female employees, et cetera. It says leave will be granted upon the same terms to employees who become adoptive parents or step parents at the time of birth or initial placement for adoption of a child under the age of 6. So I don't understand why the first one is saying that leave is available for someone when you adopt a child under the age of 18. And the next one is saying male employees get the same leave benefits as female employees. But then the condition is that the child's under the age of 6. What am I reading wrong?
So, Director Kadams, I have no doubt this whole policy was rather confusing because there's all kinds of different leaves that are available if it's due to a pregnancy. So I'll verify, I can do that again. I asked similar questions on that, didn't get real responsive answers. But for adoption, it is under the age of 18, and that is what we have been doing for years on that piece. So I'll just need to follow up. I had several questions that I posed. Some is because we give greater benefits than what's even in this policy. So I'll follow up with that and try to get another clear answer on that. But what we apply is 18, anything of 18, and our CBAs would trump any policy if it gives greater benefits. So I'll see if I can work with him to clean that up. But yeah, I have no doubt there were questions. I did too.
Okay, thank you, Debbie.
And because they say it's essential, I just think those the FMLA, the family medical leave, is so nuanced that I think it's hard to put things in a policy. You rely on the people who know the law that can change. But I'll get that reclarified and better understood before the next reading.
Okay. I wonder if I could ask for a 5-minute recess before we go into the rest of the meeting. I'll go ahead and call it. It is 8:42, and now I think I can still do my math. We'll return at 8:47.
get to fight a dragon. Silly? Calliope? Orcus? Anyone?
Final fight. Agnes versus Tiamat.
Oh God. I attack?
No damage.
Attack.
No damage.
Attack.
Nothing.
What?
Your character's not strong enough. There's nothing you can do to beat her.
No, you're wrong.
This isn't going to work.
I didn't come all this way to fail her again. I'm getting my sister's soul back, and there's nothing in this world, in this universe, that's gonna stop me. She's my sister, and I love her. So roll that dice. Keep rolling it. Because this monster, I'm killing it.
If that's what you want,
I attack.
the attack lands.
I attack again.
That attack also lands.
I keep attacking again and again and again.
This is crazy. These are all critical hits you're landing. I've never seen anything like this. You look up and you see a weak spot on Tiamat's belly. The same one the real Tilius left all those years ago.
I plunge my sword into Tiamat's guts.
I like how she's attacking with her flat iron. I'm gonna have to try that. Okay. Let's see, we're back in session, I hope. And now we move on to board member comments, but first I'd like to invite our students, if there are any left. If you have any further comments, please share. Let me see, I'll just go around. Ritika, I see you first. Or we can come back. I see Isabel, you're on camera, so I'll call on you.
Director Kilgore, sorry, my Zoom gave up on me for a second there.
Oh, okay.
It's Ritika.
Okay, Ritika, go ahead.
Okay. Further comments. Oh, so first of all, I wanted to send out a thanks to Director Chase, who I saw sent out things about a couple of legislative opportunities. I know that that's in session now, and there are many opportunities to kind of let the elected officials know what's going on, which is always important. And then as for school, as mentioned earlier, second semester kind of starting out, it can be kind of a tough time right now because, we basically don't have another longish break until spring, so it definitely can feel long. And the reminder to kind of keep things at a steady pace instead of cramming too much in is always appreciated. There's going to be a lot going forward. I know, like SAT testing and stuff like that at the high school level is coming up in March. That's apparently getting proctored or opportunities. So there are stresses on the table, and keeping things slow and steady is always much appreciated for the mental health side of things. But looking forward to another semester of hopefully good things.
Thank you. Sorelia.
I don't really have a lot more to say than the meeting was very informative, and I enjoyed a lot of the presentations, and it gave me a lot more information and insight on what I need to do as a student and what I need to tell my peers to do as a fellow student too. Otherwise, thank you for all the information as usual.
Thank you, Soralia. Isabella.
Yeah, thank you for all the presentations. And I really do hope that music classes will be able to return in person when all the other classes do. And now that we are done with the first semester, I'm really happy that we have everything much more figured out. But students are still struggling, so I know this is being optimistic, but I do hope that we return to some sort of in-person learning before the end of the school year. And also, I'd like to tell you guys a little, share a radio show that the district is having. A couple students from the district and myself are kind of leading. So it's a Spanish radio station done by students and meant to reach students in the Edmonds community and surrounding communities. And it's in Spanish, so it's meant for anyone who knows Spanish. And we just try to reach the teenagers in the community, and it's a partnership with M Radio Live, so it'd be awesome if all of you could listen in on it. We need as many listeners as we can get, so I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Do we access that online, or is it a radio station, call letters, or what?
Yeah, so you can either access it online, so it's M, the letter, and then Radio Live, or there is an app that you can download on your phone or a tablet, and it's also called M Radio Live. And then from there, it's pretty easy. We broadcast every other Wednesday at 5 o'clock. So yeah, and I believe there's also information on the Edmonds School District social medias.
Thank you. Kai.
Yeah, I really liked the band and other arts presentation. I was in the band program for a really long time, so it's nice to see that they're adapting to the new changes. And I just wanted to thank teachers for kind of easing up during the end of first semester, because usually that can be a super stressful time, but I think they did a really good job adapting to students' needs this year.
Thank you. Bajna?
Yeah, I just to reiterate what everyone else said, I think that I'm looking forward to seeing these new developments that such as with the athletics and then music coming up, and hopefully that will kind of boost some of our students' kind of mental health and feel better that things are slowly returning to normal. And really appreciated seeing all these presentations today. So thank you. It was very informative.
Great. I think I've gotten to all our students. I'm going to ask Director McMurray if you'd like to make any comments.
Well, just to thank you to those presenting. It was interesting. It was I especially appreciated Scott Barnes' presentation on because I've been wondering how this was all working for kids that are music students, for the performers. And I was pleased at how creative that the teachers and the students were being. I loved hearing about the mentoring with the high schools, but frankly, I was devastated to hear that our kids missed out on 1,242 opportunities for live performances. That is a vast number of opportunities lost, and I'm concerned about kids who become dispirited and give up on playing music during this time. So yeah, I certainly appreciated the report. It had some really great things, but it highlighted the damage being done through this pandemic.
Director Noble.
I have a couple of things I'd like to mention. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the district grounds people. I've been watching Alderwood Middle School, and they've done a tremendous job in preparing the grounds for cross country and spring track. They've cleaned up the high jump pits and the places for shot put and everything, which have gone about a year without any maintenance at all because we haven't had kids there, and they've really spruced them up, and they're ready to go for spring track. And thank you again to Scott Barnes for his presentation. I've been such a supporter of the arts, the performing arts and visual arts. I've always tried to go to at least one high school musical a year somewhere, and I can't tell you how many hours I've spent in a yellow school bus going on band trips with my children. So, and my absolutely favorite part of Edmonds Art Festival is that one room with all the student art winners. It's best part of the festival completely. So I'm super supportive of the arts. I think we should use STEAM more than STEM. So thank you very much.
Director Chase.
Thank you, Director Kilgore. And I agree, Gary, STEAM is where it's at. And I also appreciate a lot of the diligence on alignment for our actions to reflect the policies that we adopt. So I appreciate the diligence on that. And also the resiliency of our entire district, as we're talking about the reports that we're getting and what we're doing to adapt in this pandemic. It makes me very proud of this district and all the work that everyone's doing. Another thing I'm proud of is the work in Olympia. Our legislators are working very hard. We do know that WASDA is very actively tracking many of the bills, and coming up on the 21st of February is a legislative conference, and they've changed the week on the Hill to March this year. And this is an opportunity for us to engage with our legislators. I think that all these wonderful advocates realize that those of us in the school trenches are very busy right now, and I'm not sure why they changed it, but I sure appreciate that. What this means is there will be additional opportunity for us to, in that frame of time, engage with our legislators and talk about, as a district, if there are some things that we would like to focus on. And as Director Kilgore had mentioned, we should probably have that discussion, and I agree, about some of the bills that could be quite impactful on our district. In particular, there's a couple that an action alert went out on, and I shared with the board, and one of the bills was addressing the enrollment declines due to COVID and the financial impacts to districts, and as well as transportation funding. And it looks like those may be moved out of committee, meaning they will continue on. They have legs, it's called, so that there'll be some opportunity for us to engage on that. We can talk about this in depth more, and I suggest we wait until cutoff week, this is the week where many bills will either continue forward or they will not continue forward, so that we can focus our advocacy on those that do have legs. For the students, I watched some students testify this last week on some bills and was very impressed. And I do know that some of you have expressed some interest in further engagement. And so I did email out, and I think that we can, now that the first semester over and you're jumping into the second, we can maybe take some time to talk about how you'd like to engage this for the rest of the session. So that's what I have, and we can continue this on email.
Thank you, Director Chase. I wanted to ask you, do you think it's worthwhile to put this as an item on our agenda, and which agenda would you put it on?
I do think it's worthwhile to put on the agenda, and that's what I was actually trying to figure out on which one we should put it on, because, and so sometime in the next two, one of the next two, I wanted to check and see how full they were, if we'd have a chance to do this. But yes,
Okay.
yes, please.
Well, you could let me know, and I'll get it on the agenda. Then this would be for the board to talk about which items we want to focus on that would have a lot of impact for our district.
Yeah, because
And,
I appreciate that, because one of the things that in the past we have like collaborated with, like superintendent and a few board members, but we really have been missing, I think, is a larger discussion about it. And so I really appreciate you bringing that up.
and thank you for your work and keeping us abreast, because it is a lot of information. Okay, thank you. Director Kadams.
So I want to thank Director Chase also for keeping us in the loop, summarizing things for us. There's a lot to keep up with. And so we know how much time you're spending, and knowing which ones to pay attention to is really important in terms of the legislative bills. So thank you. I also want to thank two teachers whose classes I visited over the last week, Sarah Hedges, who's a kindergarten teacher at Hazelwood, and David Amentorp, who teaches math, intensified algebra in particular. I watched at Linwood High School. You know, they were in the space of like before and after weekend, and to see kindergarten and high school, in both cases, what they shared in common is teachers who were really working to get their kids engaged and were being successful. They were monitoring their kids' work through all the technology tools that they had. And even though, I was really disappointed that the high school kids all were black boxes with their name in white. And I could see why it's hard for high school kids to connect with each other in that format. The teacher was clearly connecting with them and allowing the kids to respond to him in whatever form they were comfortable with. The kindergartners were amazing. And so I want to thank both those teachers. I've had the benefit to visit other classrooms, and I just enjoy it so much. I also want to say, as a former band mom, how much I appreciate the work that Scott Barnes does and all of the music and performing arts teachers in the district. I know for my older son, band, he was in jazz band in the Symphonic Wind Ensemble or whatever it was called. That was the highlight for high school for him. That's what really engaged him. And so my heart goes out to these kids who don't have the benefit of that social piece of the music. And I also want to thank all the district staff and everybody on the teachers bargaining team as well. I know that there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes in terms of bargaining, and I know it's a lot of work and time and effort, and I just appreciate everybody working together to try to find what's best for our kids.
Thank you, Director Kadams. I'm going to be brief if it's humanly possible. I wanted to call students' attention, families' attention to an opportunity that the cross-country coaches might either love me or hate me, but cross-country is a really great opportunity. It's an open sport, everybody can join, and especially as these conditioning pods are paused as we get the fall season underway. This is an opportunity to continue your conditioning with other students outside running. And all of my kids have been in cross country. None of them are really fast, but you don't have to be a big runner. Well, they don't think they're fast. I think they're very fast, but compared to some of our star runners, they're not. But you do not have to be any kind of experienced runner to get out there. The coaches will show you how to do it and get you running a pretty good distance, and you'll have fun. I've noticed, again, through 3 kids participating, there's a lot of camaraderie and a lot of fun, and it's a great opportunity. And so that's part of that fall sport, fall season, which starts, I believe, February 22nd. So take advantage and hope to see you out there. Otherwise, I appreciate everyone's participation in this difficult transition from, across our COVID landscape, I guess. I was really heartened to see a bunch of cars in the parking lot at Edmonds College, I believe, waiting for their vaccinations. So it's happening. It's happening. And that really made me feel great. And also learning that my own parents are getting theirs on Thursday. So it feels real again, real to me. And I'm really excited about that. But I do appreciate everybody's participation in this difficult time, transitioning through the various ways that we can help students, and we'll just keep on plugging. And I just so appreciate everyone's commitment. So thank you. I'll turn it to Dr. Balderas.
And I'll be brief as well, because I know we have another presentation or discussion topic for the board. I just want to reiterate that this is the board had a resolution last year that we're going to continue this year and ongoing with the Black Lives Matter month of action and our year of purpose. So we do have committee work happening and a lot of activities happening in schools this month as we work toward the year of purpose. So we do have activities taking place through our school district with our community partners. And also wanted just to reiterate that we had the last week was school counselor week. So being a former school counselor myself, last week was an honor to our school counselors that do just amazing work with our kids, and just wanted to recognize our school counselors for all they do, especially during this very difficult time. So thank you, board of directors.
And take it away, Mr. Schwab. I think you're up for graduation. Right?
Yes. I think what I hope to focus on tonight is, and I think I hope, I'm pretty sure I shared this document with all of you, but this is our, with the review of the graduation rate data, obviously the question that, we have to ask ourselves is, what do we do about it? And I really believe that the next step is to identify what I think is a strategic goal, specifically to address how we're going to move our graduation rate. And so in the document that I hope you all have is the information that I wanted to share tonight about the work that I've laid out for us to really strategically attack our graduation rate goal. And I've divided the work on strategic to address our graduation rate goal into 4 areas. The first one is to really focus on those practices and instructional practices and adult practices that our students experience across our system. And again, focusing primarily on the middle school and high school years, but really ensuring that there's core instruction happening in grades 7 through 12, and making sure that we're providing support for best practices related to grading and assessment. I know that's been an area of concern that we've really focused on as well. And then also really working to provide professional learning for our staff to develop and strengthen their ability to provide differentiated learning. That's something we talk a lot about for our teachers, is to say, well, we just need to differentiate for the different learning needs of our students, but we really need to spend some time digging into what it means to differentiate. So the next area that we want to focus on is what I call credit attainment and recovery. So really making sure that we're doing all we can to provide our students with as many opportunities as possible to earn credits. I know we've talked about this before. One of the challenges we face in the 24 credit graduation requirement world is the fact that in Edmonds, students have access to 6 periods a day across 4 years. And that means that the maximum number of credits they can earn within the school day is 24 credits. We have many students who go beyond that, but again, when we talk about supporting students' ability to graduate on time, something we need to do is to address our students' ability to earn and recover credits as well. So really looking at how can we add opportunities for students to take a 7th class. Developing opportunities for students to recover credit. So when they do fall off track, how can we get them back on track as quickly as possible with credit recovery options? I really want to encourage our system to take a look at re-implementing graduation coaches at all of our schools. That was something that we had up until a couple of years ago when we lost those positions to budget reductions. But again, I think we need to take a look at re-implementing that position again. And then I think continuing our partnership with Graduation Alliance. I shared a little bit of data, and I want to share some more data, hopefully at our next, when we have some more data to share about how Graduation Alliance is working for our students and how we are seeing students recover and graduate from that program. The third area that I think we need to focus on are really digging into data and really becoming data literate with our principals and our teachers. And so monitoring relevant data for students' credit attainment, making sure that our students are on track in grade 9, grade 10, and grade 11. And also making sure that they're completing their high school and beyond plan graduation pathways. And then another important thing I think we need to attend to on the data front is making sure that we're supporting students in those really critical transitions from grade school to middle school, and then from middle school to high school. So really making sure that we have appropriate transition activities for students in grade 7 and grade 9. And then lastly, just really focusing on the area of motivation, really trying to make sure that students are motivated to do well in school. So ensuring that we are regularly communicating with our students and families about post-secondary options. Making sure that we're enrolling all of our eligible middle school students in the College Bound Scholarship Program. We've talked a little bit about AVID. You learned a little bit about AVID. We really want to continue to bring AVID to the school district. Making sure that all of our students complete the financial aid form. Again, that's a strong indicator of students' post-secondary success in high school and post-secondary success. And then developing plans for students to take at least one course or do one of the following in grades 9 through 12, either take a dual credit course or take a complete a CTE pathway and earn an industry certification. And then lastly, develop plans at the school level to really increase student participation in extracurricular activities. So, you know, those are the things that I think are really critical for us to focus on as we attack this graduation rate issue. And I believe that if we can get focused and approach it in a strategic way, we can get to at least a 92%, if not higher graduation rate within the time frame that I've laid out for us. So I'll stop there and see what questions you all might have.
So Greg, this is Nancy. This is great for long-term thinking, which we obviously have to have, but I'm also thinking in terms of short-term needs. If you could sort of address the credit retrieval and credit recovery concerns for kids right now, right. What's going on with our kids who we need to help get over that hump, like who are juniors and seniors right now.
Yeah, exactly. So we, all of our high schools have been given staffing that supports credit retrieval at each of the schools. And so that's happening. In addition, we expect that we're going to get some help from the legislature to support students in getting to graduation. Again, understanding that this pandemic has put them a little bit behind the 8 ball. So, but we have credit retrieval going on at all of our high schools. Built in, although it's not built, the kids still have to do something extra, but it's resources that each high school has. In addition to that, we're planning, we have done summer school, and we'll continue to plan a very robust summer school this summer to try to support students in recovering credits as well. We also have our high schools we've been talking about developing competency-based opportunities for students to complete courses. Working with teachers and our principals to develop those competency-based assessments that can help students recover credit in courses as well. So there's a lot of work that's happening in the moment to try to address making sure that we're helping those kids get across the finish line that have been impacted in these last 2 years.
Greg, if a kid takes a course through the e-learning in order to recover a credit, is there any charge to the student for that?
Well, if it depends. So if they take it as part of their as one of their 6 courses, there's no charge. But if it's an additional 7th course, then there is a cost associated with it. What we've been trying to do with working with e-learning is to develop a set of credit retrieval courses that are very short, courses that are short in duration, that allow students again to recover credit quickly. And we've been, for seniors, we've been covering the staffing costs for those courses. But that's another area. That's an area I think we need to enhance more, is how can we allow more students to take a 7th course using, for example, using our e-learning program as a way to help them earn more credits.
As I recall back in, many years ago, Mountain Lake Terrace High had a 7-period day instead of a 6-period day. And those students were allowed to take 7 courses if they wished, and they were not charged extra for it. And so is there a really large obstacle for us to allow any student to take a 7th course through e-learning without being charged for it?
Well, there's the increased FTE cost, because that 7th course would require additional e-learning to add additional teachers. So if we had every student, for example, take a 7th course through e-learning, that would require more teachers at e-learning than we currently have. And so that's a cost that we would need to absorb in order to be able to make that opportunity available to kids. Not saying we can't do it. We would just need to plan for it.
Yeah, this is Anne. Thank you for that, Greg. I'm interested in a dollar amount budget consequences for each of the things that you listed, so that as we're looking at next year's budget and years out, what the budget implications are of each of the points that you made in your presentation.
And I can get that for you. I don't have that for you tonight, but I can definitely get that for you.
Greg, this is Nancy again. I'm wondering if you know what percentage of the incomplete grades from last spring have been turned into passing grades, and how many weren't?
That's a good question. And again, we're waiting for the semester grades from first semester of this school year to be posted, because for many students who had an incomplete grade from last semester, one of the options they will be able to access is the backfill option. So if they took the next course in a sequence, for example. So I'll have that data for you probably by our next meeting, once we've had a chance to get grades posted, and then see how many students were able to access the backfill option.
Other questions from the board?
I really appreciate this, Greg. I was just trying to check where the emergency waiver of graduation requirements was in executive session, because I heard it this week. So, there. Okay. So yeah, it's passed to Rules Committee for second reading. I'm sure that you already know that, but
yeah,
everybody knows.
It's on its way.
Yeah, everybody knows it's on the way.
It's on the way. Then the state Board of Education needs to get it and write the rules for it. So.
And did I see something from the state board that in the future we might be down to 22 credits again?
I had heard something about that. I don't know all the details on that, but I'll be curious. Yeah, I think that's a possible. We could see something coming out of the legislature around that as well.
Okay.
It's come up a couple of times, so it's not the first time.
Any other comments, questions? Well, we'll keep talking about this because it's one of our most important things we do here as graduate students. Thank you. Thank you for the report. And if there's nothing else, I will go ahead and, yeah, there's nothing else, right? Okay, a meeting adjourned. Good night.